Hey y'all, I am Jennifer Purcell and I am here with Williams to talk about her story. But just in case you missed her last interview, let me take a moment to reintroduce her. Marlene writes groovy love stories set in the 1950s to 1970s. Her debut novel, All Men Are Liars, Jesus Revolution Romance Book 1, released this September. Her debut novella, Wild and Sweet, is part of Christmas in the Cascades, a sweet Christian romance anthology. Although she lives in Western New York, she was born and raised in the Washington, D.C. area. When not writing, she's thinking about writing and consequently burning dinner. So, all right, Marlene, let's hop into it. Tell us the inspiration behind dating the decoy.
Oh my gosh, I had so much fun. And Jennifer, I'm really tickled to be here with you again because I just love you and I love your haircut. Folks, I don't know if you know that she got a haircut, but she did, and it is darn cute. So, um, I honestly didn't have much of an idea. I loved the theme of love in disguise, and I just kept coming up with something and then rejecting it, thinking, oh, that's so obvious. Everybody else is going to do that, masquerade balls, and oh my gosh. And then, and this is honestly so strange. I can't believe I'm actually telling y'all this, but when I was young, I was married to a man who worked for the CIA. And he was not a spy. He was like a computer geek kind of a guy back in the 70s. And he worked at Langley, Virginia, which is the headquarters. And all of a sudden I remembered that he told me one day, I hope we're not going to get like shut down by the government for stuff talking about this. But I remember he told me one time that he worked with a guy who was in weapons, and he was like inventing stuff. These things really happen, folks. I mean, like, this is for real. You think Mission Impossible is crazy, but it's not. So there was a room where they had all of these disguises, and they had like fake IDs and rubber masks, just like Mission Impossible. And I said, you saw these? And he said, yeah. And when I was thinking about love in disguise, I thought, wouldn't it be funny to have two people that are agents and they're wearing these disguises, because they actually do have that in the government. They have people that are the same build as important government officials, and they send out decoys so that the bad guys will chase them through the city instead of the real deal. So all of those movies that you're like, yeah, that would never happen, it happens. So that was my inspiration, is once being married to someone who worked for the CIA.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because I was wondering what kind of research you had to do to find out some of these, and like how much imagination you might have had to use, because top secret information. But it ended up being your husband told you something one time.
Right. I didn't have to make up much of anything. And I was born in Washington, D.C., and I lived in that area. And my father was a dispatcher for the Pepco company, like one of the gas companies. And so he knew all of the streets. And when I was a little girl, when I was sick, he would sit on the edge of the bed. Instead of reading me a story, he would, in his imagination, he would drive down the streets of Washington, D.C., and he would say, okay, now we're going down 35th Street, and now that's where the Willard Hotel is, and then we're going down here, and we're going. So I had this wonderful, and this is what all writers do, right? We dip back into the things that were precious to us or wonderful to us or just interesting, and we pull them out of the vault when we need them. And this is what came out of the vault. I was like, I loved the Washington, D.C. of the 50s and 60s. It's a very vibrant place and full of intrigue. And so I thought that would just be a lot of fun.
I love that. Now I want to talk about Washington, D.C. for a second, because when I think of D.C., I think about like the White House and the National Mall and the Washington Monument and stuff like that. But I mean, obviously there's a lot more to Washington, D.C. that a tourist, well, I've never been there, but if I did, I would be a tourist. That is not aware of. So I'm kind of curious, what was it like living in Washington, D.C.?
Well, I was like the size of a peanut when I lived in Washington, D.C., so I have no memory of it. But my father, that was his home turf, and he was actually a beat cop in Washington, D.C. in the 40s. And so who knows, I may have to write a book someday that's set smack dab in DC and pull on some of the things that Dad used to tell me. It was fun living in that. We lived close enough that when our relatives came from anywhere and they stayed with us, they wanted to go down to DC and they wanted to see the White House, and we had to climb the Washington Monument, and we got to go into the Capitol, and we went, with the mint, and it was wonderful. And to be an elementary school student, your field trips were epic because you were right there. You went to Gettysburg, or you went to Monticello, or you went to Mount Vernon, or you went to Williamsburg, and it was all within a day's drive. So it's rich. It's rich with history and intrigue and excitement and romance. So I just feel very blessed that I was raised in that area.
Yeah, man. I'm a little jealous. I'm not going to lie. I'm not supposed to be jealous. But as like a history nerd, I'm kind of jealous.
Yeah. There's a lot of good history there. It's cool.
Okay, so now I'm curious, Marline, because I know you like to set a lot of your stories within like the 1950s to the 1970s. And the way my brain works is I cannot separate my stories out. Like, they are in the same story world. So I'm curious, will we see these characters again? Is there any chance that a character in one story knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who knows another character?
There is. I had a cousin who was an older cousin. My parents were much older than everybody else's parents. Like, they used to say to me, "Oh, look, your grandmother's here." And I was like, "Okay, I'll meet you in the parking lot. I'm just going to punch your lights out for that." But it was my mom. So I had cousins who were adults. So it was kind of weird. But I had one cousin named Gene, and he was a man, and he was so romantic to me because he drove a motorcycle. This was, and he used to be a helicopter pilot. So he was just like, Action Jackson. He was just really the coolest thing, G.I. Joe. And whenever I write these kind of, athletic or very masculine, very strong, stalwart types, I always think of him because he used to come to like the family parties, and he was just sort of clothed in mystery and allure. I would see him and just think, "Oh, he's so wonderful." I was a little girl. I was just nuts about him. And I just have a feeling that the characters in this book are going to bump up into his world, because I'm writing a book right now. I just finished writing it for NaNoWriMo, and it was, how it is with NaNoWriMo. You have to write like the wind, and you don't really have the time to do this soul digging. You're just like rattling through like a freight train, you got to get it written. But I have in the back of my mind, I really want to bring Gene, my cousin, into this world. I have another cousin named David, and David actually showed up in All Men Are Liars, my 1970s book, and he's still alive. My cousin David is still alive. He was a ski bum in Idaho and he was a linesman. So I just have the most fascinating male cousins, don't I? I mean, really, they are just a treasure trove of men for my books. But he shows up in this, and I think he is going to be in the third or the fourth of the series of the Jesus Revolution series, because he went out west, and I'm moving. And this story is set on the East Coast, but a lot of the Jesus Revolution happened on the West Coast. And so the third book is going to be moving out toward California. And I just have a feeling a certain ski bum named David might show up.
Ooh, I love that. Okay, now I want to talk about your Christmas Bell, but I feel like I have to give proper homage to Thanksgiving.
Yes.
So tell me your favorite Thanksgiving tradition.
I want to say the thing that, what do they call it? Virtue showing, that they do nowadays. I want to say something like, well, I love when we sit around the table and talk about our blessings, but we never actually did that. So my favorite Thanksgiving tradition is a drink called a gingerberry. This is the easiest thing in the world to make, and children can drink it. It's not like a woohoo kind of drink. It's just a drink. It is equal parts cranberry juice cocktail, and you got to get the good stuff. Don't get the cheap, don't get the no name, get the real deal, get the ocean spray. And ginger ale. Now I'll let you pick whatever ginger ale you like, but it's got to be, like decent ginger ale. And you just pour them in at the same time, and they're called ginger berries. So that's my favorite thing. And at our house, it's just not Thanksgiving if you're not drinking a gingerberry. And even better, you get more points if you're drinking it out of a little glass that's like a wine glass. So it looks very fancy. Children love this. It looks very, very fancy if you put it in a nice little crystal that you get, of course, at the Goodwill for like $1, right? And that it looks good for toasting, you ching ching, it just feels very, very fancy. And my friend, shout out to Father Charles Perry, my best friend growing up, because he and I invented this drink. And so every time I drink a gingerberry, I think of my dear friend Charlie.
Oh, I love that. Oh, that's great. Okay. I have to admit, we don't sit around and
do the blessing. I love to see that on TV. I'm like, that's so Norman Rockwell. That's so beautiful. Yes. And by the way, if you love Thanksgiving, and I do, there is a chapter, I think it's chapter 20. I can't quite remember, but there's a really epic Thanksgiving scene and chapter in this book that if you love Thanksgiving, you're going to want to get the book so that you can read the Thanksgiving chapter, because I feel like a lot of books, just like you said, Jennifer, you kind of skip over it and they do the Christmas thing, but they don't really write about Thanksgiving. And this has everything you love about Thanksgiving plus a funny cat. So you can't go wrong with that.
That's good. And I have to say, in poor Thanksgiving's defense, it's got some of the best food.
Oh gosh, yes. Yeah. The stuffing alone is worth the price of admission. And now, do you call it dressing or stuffing? There's a big brouhaha.
My family would call it dressing.
See,
you have to drop the G. If you don't drop the G, you ain't saying it right.
No, it's dressing, right?
Yeah,
it's dressing. And we eat stuffing. So that it's a variation, because we're from Maryland, so we're not all the way south, but just enough south to drop our G's. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I remember as a kid seeing stuffing on TV and being like, what is stuffing?
Yes.
My mom had to explain it to me. She said, do it differently.
Dressing, honey. It's call it something different.
And she was like, some people actually put it in the bird. And I was like, why would you put it in the bird? And she was like,
oh gosh, it tastes so good.
It does?
And now, oh my gosh, it's fantastic because it's got that soaked in gravy-ish. Oh baby. Oh yeah. Now they will tell you nowadays you don't do that because it's riddled with, bacteria, but just cook it. Okay. Just cook it, folks. You don't just use your common sense. Okay. Cook the thing. And recipes here, you didn't expect you were going to get recipes tonight, did you, folks? But there it is. We're close enough to Thanksgiving. We're spilling the tea here, and we're sharing the stuffing/dressing recipes.
You never know what you're going to get here, do you?
You never know. It's a complete whirlwind of fun here.
Okay, well, let's get forward to my favorite holiday of the year. And let's talk about your Christmas novella. I want to hear more about this.
Thank you. This is called Christmas in the Cascades, and it is 5 novellas by, this is such a cool concept. There is a town that we made up called Danes Creek, and it's in Oregon in the Cascades area. And we decided that since there were 5 authors and we sort of specialized in different eras, we had one gal that writes in the Victorian era, another gal that writes contemporary, another one that was more sort of contemporary. And then there was me that's in the 1960s. And so we decided we would just write in our genre, in our era. It would all be romances. They're all kind of Western. So there's Cowboys for Christmas. Who doesn't love that? And there in the town, there's a famous bell tower, like a landmark bell tower. And all of the stories, something very romantic or significant happens at the bell tower. And these are by Marissa Adams, she writes in the 1870s. And April Kidwell, who is one of the Spark flash fiction writers. You can find her work and she's writing in the 1910s. Mine is in the 1960s. Chris Daniel is writing in the 2000, the Y2K panic. She's writing something about it's very cute. And then Callie Black, who is a wonderful contemporary Western writer. She wraps it all up and it's contemporary. like the 2024. And so the stories go from the 1870s all through the 150 years in this town, from the founding to the floundering, we like to say, because the town's kind of on its last legs in the 2024s. And how can the mayor save the town is the big question. So these are sweet, clean, Christian, wonderful romantic stories. They're all very Christmassy. It's the perfect gift to give anybody who loves romance. If you don't know if they like contemporary or historical, you got it covered. I mean, and this baby is like, this is what you want to read while you're waiting for Santa, or when you're watching somebody put together a toy that you don't know how to do. You're like, no, you're doing a great job, honey. I'm almost finished with this chapter. I'll be right with you. But my story in here is called Wild and Sweet. And it is the story of an Eastern heiress who goes west because she's struggling with her country club life. She wants something that's more significant. And she stumbles into a sort of a second chance romance that she didn't expect to find. But there's a huge problem that I will let the reader figure out what it is. And we'll see how she deals with it. I had so much fun writing this. Jennifer, I don't usually write like a straight up romance. I write rom-coms, but this one was super swoony and super romantic. And I think people are going to love it. And there is a cabin in a storm, I'll just say. And there's horses. And it's oodles of fun. I had so much fun writing it.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah.
I'm excited. While my sister's staying up late, assembling all of the Christmas presents for her kids. I'm going to text her and be like, guess what I'm doing? I'm doing that.
I'm kicking back with a book, right? I could read a chapter to you while you put it together. Would you like that? Okay. Would that be sneaky? Oh my gosh.
It would be sneaky. Oh man. So you mentioned your novella and you mentioned NaNoWriMo, and then we talked a little bit before we went live about how you were working on a story, and you said to me that you had to contact a government agency.
Yes. I am writing. It's so funny because I don't write suspense novels and I don't write these like nail biters, but for weird reasons, I'm sort of in a government thing right now. And so I wrote the NaNoWriMo and I buttoned it up because I wanted to write a special flash fiction story just for my subscribers. And you can go to Marline Williams. It's MARLINE Williams.com, and you can sign up. And the December 1 Marline mail is going to contain this story. So I'm banging it out, and I got this great idea. I was so excited about it. It's something that I've always been fascinated with, and it's very Christmassy. I'm giving you all these clues, and it involves a government agency. And so to find out what this government agency was doing in the 1960s, when this particular thing started in 1955, which is the year I was born. Double nickels, shout out to the boomers. And I was very excited when I found out that this particular service that the government offers began in 1955, and it began because of a proofing error in an advertisement. Now, how's that for a teaser, folks? You're going to want to know, right? So I called the government agency this morning, and a certain captain, which got so exciting, answered, and he was a doll. And I said, I'm looking for what was happening in the late 50s, early 60s around this project. And he said, I'll have somebody get back to you. This is a very interesting problem. So I'm awaiting an answer. And whatever the answer is, you will see it in my flash fiction story, which is going to be in the December 1 Marline mail, which you can only get if you're a subscriber to my email, which is a freebie. Of course, it's quarterly. I'm moving it to monthly because I'm just having too much fun to split it up in just the 4 ways. I just love sending out these fun things. And this interview will be linked in that email, and a special subscriber exclusive flash fiction story that's a Christmas story.
Aren't you just full of teasers tonight?
Aren't I? I'm just having way yonder too much fun teasing y'all. But I really think I was laughing, writing it and just thinking, this is so much fun. So I think that I've heard other people say that if you don't laugh when you're writing it, your readers aren't going to laugh. If you don't cry when you're writing it, your readers aren't going to cry. We have to open our hearts and pour a little something of ourselves into our work so that people can get that wonderful response as they read it and they think, oh, this is so, I understand this, I feel this. And that's what we're going for, isn't it, Jennifer? To just share the love that we have for the Lord, the love that we have for our characters who sometimes love us back and sometimes fight us, but that's okay. So that's where we're at right now. So I'm done with Nano. I'm working on the flash fiction, and I know that Spark is closed for the year, so to speak. The issues are over for the year, but I've learned to love writing flash fiction because of Spark. So I'm so tickled and so grateful that you guys are it's a blessing. Y'all have been a blessing to me.
Yay, I'm so excited. Well, we just gotten excited that you keep coming back. We love it. You keep coming back.
Oh, you can count on that. Like it or lump it. You're stuck with me now. So you'll see something from me probably every quarter. Like, oh, she's at it again. So that's
well, I have to say, it's been pretty fun seeing how you fit it into the decades that you write about. Because you always like add these little twists that I'm not expecting. Like, I have never thought about Disney back in the day, and then you wrote a story about a woman on like the river cruise, and I'm just like, oh. I don't mean to be the self-centered millennial, but sometimes I forget things happen.
Oh, people were falling in love and doing this kind of thing before I was around. Imagine that. Yeah. And I love to do that because that it's history, but not quite. Like, it's really kind of a weird sort of in between period where it's like it is historical, but there was it doesn't have to have like a war going on like on that soil in order for it to be significant. And the 50s and 60s and 70s were such a seminal time in American history, and there was so much going on, and there were so many wonderful things that were happening, like the moon shots, and that there was the environmental movement and the earth movement and the feminist movement, and there were just all of this civil rights movement. There was a lot going on, and I feel so blessed and I feel so driven to write about this because I want people to recognize so much of what we're living now has come from that era, and how your mothers and grandmothers were incredibly significant women, and what they lived is worth documenting and celebrating.
Yeah, that's like when my mom tells me that she graduated in 1976, and she was talking about like it was a big year because it was the bicentennial and
It's
like
right.
All these things that were going on. And I was sitting here thinking, I don't even know if I'm going to live to see 2066.
I know, right? Right? Yeah. Yes, it's we would wear like it was huge. Especially that where we lived in around the DC area, that was every parade. Every 4th of July parade in 76, we had, Uncle Sam leading the way, and we had the Spirit of 76. We had the drummer, the fifer, the guy with a Band-Aid around his head. So it was like we all wore patchworks in red, white, and blue, and we were gung-ho on that. And there's a little of that not happening nowadays. So I just want to make sure that people don't forget that America was like that, and that we were just as romantic and just as swoony, if not more, back in the day. So I'm excited that I get to represent that to just maybe a new generation of readers.
Yeah, I love that. That's so very exciting.
Thanks.
Of course, I'm biased because, like I said in the last interview, I grew up on like the 50s and 60s and 70s music. So, like,
yes. And it's precious, I gotta say. I do listen to it as a kind of a prime in the pump sometimes before I start writing. So I'm like, oh yeah, I remember, this is so good.
All right. Well, thank you, Marlene, for joining us tonight. This was a whole host of fun.
It wasn't it? And you are such a good interviewer because you take a great interest and joy in what we're saying instead of like, oh my gosh, is it time to, So I'm so grateful that I got to talk with you again, Jennifer, because I just think you're the cutest little pumpkin in the patch, as I heard somebody say the other day. And it's like, oh, I love that.
Well, thank you.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome.
Thank you to everyone who is watching tonight, whether it's live or the replay. Be sure to check out Marlene's book, All Men Are Liars, or her novella, In Christmas in the Cascades. You don't want to miss those.
No, don't. Don't
And
miss
be
them.
sure to sign up for her newsletter so you can read this flash fiction story and find out.
Yes, and by the way, all of the proceeds for All Men Are Liars is being donated to Young Life. So know that when you buy this book, your money is going to people like the characters in this book who discovered Jesus as young college goers. And this is the work that Young Life is doing nowadays. I'm not affiliated with them, but they helped me grow in the Lord when I was a young woman. And so this is my first fruits in the Lord. And I decided that that would be a good way to use the proceeds.
Oh, I love that. Well, there you go. You know,
There
it
you
is
go.
getting close to Giving Tuesday, which I learned was the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. So this way you can buy a book and technically be giving.
And still be giving. I mean, that's a win-win, isn't it? That's awesome.
It is. Yeah, you can definitely justify that cost.
You
right?
can. And if you like a rom-com and if you love a Thanksgiving scene, that's the book for you. All Men Are Liars by Marline Williams. And just stop over at my website, marlinewilliams.com, sign up, and you won't miss any of the fun.
Isn't she just a marketing genius over here, Jan?
Well, 20 years in the advertising world, that'll do it to you.
Mm-hmm. You can tell you're an expert. I love it.
Oh gosh, this has been such a hoot. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for having me. And thank you, Spark Fiction, for running my story. I am beyond thrilled. It's so gratifying and it's so affirming to an author to see other people enjoying your work. It makes me so happy.
Yay. That's why we do what we do. We love this. All right, everyone, y'all have a fantastic weekend and a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Yes.
So excited. Eat too much turkey and regret it a little bit later. Take a nap, read a book.
Concoct a gingerberry. Now you know how to make it. So
it sounds really good and refreshing.
It is tasty. Well, happy Thanksgiving, y'all.
All right. Good night, y'all.